Wyoming Armory right here in Cody, Wyoming. And one of the issues we run into from time to time in restoring these old firearms is the occasional gun that has been so badly rusted and pitted that we can no longer definitively read the serial number. And sometimes it's just gone altogether. So today we're going to do a short episode, just show you our process for trying to bring back a serial number that's no longer readable. Alright, this is our subject test piece today. It's just a relic, horrible rusted old lower tang of an 1873. We've worked on the serial number in the past. It was completely obliterated because of the condition of the gun. Basically the rust and pitting had taken it out. So we're starting off with a polished piece, and then I just went back and stamped 1 through 5 for a serial number. We're going to take that serial number off now. We'll file and polish that out. And what we'll use here to try to raise that serial number is Fry's reagent. And this is, I think, probably the most commonly used by law enforcement to try to raise serial numbers. And it's an etchant. So how it works is this will etch the metal, and it will etch at a different degree depending on the density of the metal. And of course, underneath these serial numbers where we've stamped it, it's more dense, so it won't react as much, won't etch where the serial numbers are as much as the less dense material around it. So if it works correctly, what you'll see is kind of a matte etched finish with the numbers coming up kind of white and not nearly as much of a degree of etching on it. So it'll be kind of ghost serial numbers that we'll raise up. Now this episode is strictly about the process of raising the serial numbers. I'm not going to get into the legalities of it. Shouldn't get your legal information on firearms from some guy on YouTube, and especially if I give you even the best advice in the world, the comment section fills up with well-meaning people that believe they know the exact legalities, and you can get good information and bad information, but tons of conflicting information. You don't know which way to turn. So if you've got legal questions about firearms, you know, your best bet is to talk to ATF or talk to an attorney who is well versed in firearms law if you really don't want to talk to the folks at ATF. Don't get your information out of a forum or a comment section on YouTube. Alright, so our first step now is we're going to take out those serial numbers that we've just stamped in there, and it'll take a little elbow grease. I stamped them in fairly deep, but of course the factory did as well. Now when we're taking these off, I'm going to try to get just to the bottom of the serial numbers and not much further. The deeper you go, or the deeper the pitting is, or if somebody's ground them off, if they grind them off real deep, but of course we lose that extra density the more material we take off. So I'm going to try to get just to the bottom of these serial numbers, and then we'll start the polishing process. And for those of you who are wondering, you've heard the term draw filing. It's just a fancy term for what I'm doing right now. Okay, now we've got that down to where I can just see a couple of little remnants of the original serial numbers. Now we can't leave it there. We've got to polish it a lot further, because this surface looks a lot like what the etching will look like when we're done, so it wouldn't create that contrast. So we're going to go to like a 400 grit sandpaper here, start in polishing, and then we'll eventually take this over to the buffing wheel. And it's one of the few times we touch a gun part to a buffing wheel around here, and just really give it a high polish so that we can be sure we get the contrast against that etched surface when we use the reagent. Okay, we've got this polished up to a real high shine now. You might see that there's just a couple of little remnants there, almost look like scratches, and those are just kind of remnants of kind of tail end of some of the serial numbers. Now the next step is we'll put some hot melt glue around, make a little dam just to hold that reagent in place. Alright, so we've just got this cheap hot melt glue gun that we bought at a local hardware store, and we'll make a little dam around where the serial number would be. That will hold our etchant in place. Try to do this where you can still see it on camera. Now it's time to put some of this reagent on. And you can just brush it on, but I like to get it standing on there and working, so we'll get a little more there and let that work for a little bit. This will take, sometimes it takes several cycles of putting this reagent on. It'll kind of turn a little darker as it's working, and then it's time to brush it off and put a little more on. Now this is the third application, and hopefully the camera's picking this up, but we're starting to see those serial numbers appear. Maybe I can adjust the light a little bit. So we'll just keep applying coats, watch them slowly reveal themselves. Okay, looks like we're starting to see them a little more clearly now. And if you were expecting something pretty dramatic, you're usually kind of disappointed. But we're seeing the outline now. I think the 1, the 2, the 3, and the 5 are getting fairly clear. The 4, I knew when I polished it, it was a little lighter stamped than the others, so it's not quite showing up yet. We've got about 5 or 6 cycles into it, and sometimes it takes as many as 10 or 15 applications to really get them to come out. And even at then, they're not going to just stand right up like original stamped serial numbers, but you can start to see that they're clarifying themselves pretty well. So we've had this etchant on for about an hour. We've got probably 10 applications of it, and hopefully the camera's picking this up. We can pretty clearly see all the numbers now. Our 4 again was stamped just a little bit lighter, so it's a little harder to see. We'll get this dam off of here and get this all cleaned up and take another look at it. And this Fry's reagent can also work on gunmetal surfaces, or in this case, the bronze alloy that's in the 1866 Winchesters. Now this 1866 had the serial number completely polished off, and we've managed to pull up most of the serial numbers, but we're still missing, it looks like probably at least 1. But if you can see here, we've got a 6, a 3, a 2, and another 2, and the 2s are really not lined up very well, and that's fairly common with some of these hand stamps, although that one is a little further off than most. Now if you weren't familiar with the process before, now you've got a new tool in your tool chest. All it takes is a little luck, some mail order Fry's reagent, and knowledge of the process. And it isn't a tough process at all. It's not always successful. Sometimes they've been ground off too deep and we just can't pull them back up. But it's always worth a shot. So thanks for joining us today. I hope you maybe learned a little something. Until next time, happy trails from Wyoming Armory in Cody, Wyoming.